Today is March 15. Ukraine Media Center Ukraine Forum continues its operation. My name is Vasyl Samokhvalov, and our guest today is Tetyana Berezhna, the Deputy Minister of Economy of Ukraine. She is joining us online. Good afternoon, Ms. Tetyana. Ms. Tetyana, good afternoon. Are you hearing us? Yes, I'm hearing you. Great. Ms. Tetyana, the first question is quite simple. Ukrainian labor market. What is it as of today? What's the level of unemployment? What are the professions that are in most demand and what are not needed at all? Well, let's start with the figures. We all understand very well that the war resulted in shutdown of many industries, many enterprises, the fall of economy, there is internal migration, many Ukrainians left abroad. It affected negatively the labor market, and as of December there was 6.8 million hired employees, which is 1.2 million lower than the same indicator in the December 2021. As of today, the number of officially registered unemployed with the state unemployment service is 106,000 persons. We have certain indicators upon the results of operation of the state unemployment service. 1,037 persons applied to the state unemployment service. 37,000 already found their new employment. More than 20,000 vacancies are already registered in the portal of vacancies. And talking about this portal, which was launched at the website of the state unemployment service, it has 147,000 vacancies open in total. So in year 2023, as of its beginning, we may say, so those are the numbers for 2023. As to the 2022, we may have certain results that we can summarize. During the war, more than 1 million persons used the services of state unemployment service, and thanks to the efforts of that body, more than 305,000 Ukrainians found their new employment. As to the number of people who underwent special training and received unemployment support, unemployment aid, it's 89,000 of those who received the aid and 47,000 of those who underwent training. The temporarily unemployed persons were engaged in the public works, in the community service, and 35,000 were engaged in such works in 2022. And as to the activity of the employers within year 22, the information on vacancies was provided by 100,000 employers, and they accounted for 400,000 vacancies in total. Talking about the structure of those vacancies whom they were looking for during 2022, in most demand were qualified workers with instruments like baker, painter, or plumber, and then professionals such as pharmaceutical specialists, teachers, and then service personnel, which account for 17% of the vacancies, the operators of pump stations, the drivers, and 11% are the specialists like nurse, pharmaceutical assistant, and other professions of that kind. So this is the brief information about how the labor market is developing in 2023 and what is the summary upon the end of the 2022. I want to emphasize that the number of vacancies and the number of hired personnel, I mean those insured who are paid taxes for, did not reach the pre-war level. However, we see that starting from the middle of 2022 there is a positive tendency which comforts us a lot. Do we understand it correct that in the perspective of years 23-24, Ukraine will need more working professions, those working with hands rather than journalists or photographers? Well, Ukraine needs absolutely all the Ukrainians who help to approximate the victory, who can create added value, who can provide services and manufacture goods which would be in demand in Ukraine, and not only by Ukrainians, but also for the external markets. So I emphasize that everybody is necessary, everybody is needed, but there will be more focus on the professions that would be actual for restoration of the country. We understand that we have a lot of destroyed businesses, infrastructure, and so on and so forth, and we will have a huge hope on the people who will be engaged in this restoration. I have to say that even now, during the war, during the active invasion, the government implemented the program Restoration Army, which you may have heard about, and within the framework of that program, the people are involved in community services and they can get engaged in the restoration of the country, because those are such works as clearing of debris and restoration of residential buildings which were damaged as a result of warfare. So those are the works that are already underway. So let's ask you about the Restoration Army, which was announced as the project back in October, and the latest figures witnessed that more than 9,000 Ukrainians were involved in this work from 14 regions of Ukraine. So what's your evaluation of the results of this project? I will tell you about the goal of this project. It's to get those temporarily unemployed in the works that are aimed at restoration of our country, and the funds that they receive for such works is higher than the unemployment aid. So it's noble and beneficial to get engaged in those works. So you mentioned the right number of people who were involved, but this number dynamically changes. As of today, we have already 9,500 unemployed in 14 regions of Ukraine, and we understand that most likely next week we will be able to present the number of people involved on a level more than 10,000. Talking about the regions which are involved to the most extent in this type of community services, obviously the leader is the Poltava region. As of today, in this region, 2,800 persons were engaged in community services. They are followed by Donetsk region and Kyiv region with 1,300, and Sumy region with 1,280 people. So those are the people who are engaged in community services, and the government disbursed 63 million hryvnias to them. The list of works depends on the needs of specific region and is being identified by local governments. So there is a list of works, like approximate list of what those works can be, but the local governments can identify the works by themselves. For example, like social assistance in the invincibility stations, the login for the civil population that was actual during winter, the outfitting of the shelters, as I mentioned already, clearing of the debris and restoration of residential buildings. But again, this list may be expanded depending on the needs of the region. We have questions on the floor. Good afternoon, Valentin from Ukrinform. I have a question. Prime Minister mentioned that due to the big war, Ukraine lost more than 300 jobs, or 3 million jobs, sorry. So what are the measures to be taken to return those jobs? Thank you for the question. You may have meant the Restoration Army, but there are more programs to renew the jobs. There is a number of such programs, and one of the most popular is the grant program e-Robota, e-work. It was launched in 2022, so you may take a grant for development or establishment of your own business. There are micro grants in amount of up to 250,000 hryvnias, which are extended to the businessmen or those who want to become businessmen. Other are the grants for the processing industry, for the horticulture and agriculture, and the necessary condition is creating jobs. A person receives a grant. In case of micro grants is 250,000, which should be returned as taxes and levies within 3 years, but you have to employ 2 person. Talking about the processing industry, the amount is up to 8 million hryvnias, which are co-funded by government and the businessmen who receive the grant, and the requirements are more extensive. You have to employ more than 25 persons and return the grant as taxes and levies within 3 years. We understand that the last year the program was just launched, but talking about micro grants, the government, it was 16,000 applicants in total, and after thorough selection by the government, the grants were received by 321 persons, and who created about 3,000 jobs. In case of processing, it's obviously bigger because the processing industry contemplates creation of at least 25 jobs. So we expect creation of more jobs this year within the framework of this program. Another program is for the employers who assist to employing of hired personnel. We understand that it's not everybody who wishes to be a businessman, so we create jobs at the account of compensation for employment. What I mean is the program of compensation of salary for employment of internally displaced persons. So the business which employs internally displaced person may get compensation for paying their salary within 2 months in amount of 1 minimum wage. So this is how we stimulate the businesses to create new jobs and employ internally displaced persons. The similar programs for compensation of salaries, at least in part, exist for such persons as disabled persons or participants of the battle operations. So there are programs which help the employer to create new jobs by compensating their salaries. Also worth evaluation are the programs for retraining, which allows people to get new jobs. Among such programs are, for example, retraining in the Center for Professional Services with unemployment service, or get a voucher for training for certain list of professions, and the cost of such voucher is 26,000 hryvnias. In April this year, we hope we will be able to launch the program for retraining, which is called Start 2T, where the trainees will be able to train in the area of IT, which is the sector which creates a lot of jobs. So the grant programs, retraining, restoration army are those initiatives of the government, including those administered by the Ministry of Economy, which aim at creation of new jobs. We have another question. Yeah, I wanted to ask for details. You said that as of December 2022, 146,000 persons were registered as unemployed. So it's clear that not everybody gets registered. Do you have any statistics as to the number of people who don't work but still are not registered. Yes, you are absolutely right. The number of the people who were registered as unemployed as of today is 146,000, but it's clear that it's not all of them, not all of those people who don't work, because there is a difference which is clear. Many people left abroad, they cannot stay, they cannot be registered as unemployed. Many men do not get registered with the unemployment service as unemployed, and that's why a number of the unemployed in fact is bigger than those registered, and we understand that it's about 2.8 million people. Thank you very much. So if as today this figure is 2.8 million, getting back to the forecast, what's your personal forecast for the next year or two? What will be going on in the labor market? What will be your advice for the employers and employees? We understand that the situation in the labor market directly depends on the war, on what will be going on in our country, because the economic activity of the businesses remains low even today. As I mentioned, we observe some tendencies for renewal and growth of the number of hired personnel, and we hope that even though this tendency is not getting close to the level of the pre-war years, it has a positive dynamics. What we also observe from the number of the insured people is the growth of number of vacancies, both with the unemployment service and in the online platforms. That's why we understand that everything depends on the war, on the battle operations, but we call both hired personnel and the employers to follow the programs created by the government, administered by the government, to create more jobs. For example, those I mentioned, compensation for the employers, grant programs, and retraining. I also want to mention that the government and the Ministry of Economy actively develops new programs that will be in line with the challenges of today. We understand that there is an extensive number of persons today who are defenders of our homeland, and time will come when they will have to reintegrate to the labor market after the termination of their service. So now we work, and we hope that shortly there will be a grant program for veteran business launched that will enable veterans or their spouses or a group of veterans to take a grant from the government on the conditions of return as taxes and levies, but that grant program will allow them to create their own business and to hire employees. So we advise to pay attention to those programs administered by the government and actively use them. Thank you very much. Joining us was Tetyana Berezhna, Deputy Minister of Economy on Ukraine, and we will continue our work tomorrow. See you shortly.